Afternoon. Good afternoon. How are you all doing today? Good. I'm Tara Carroll. I'm the president and CEO of the North Augusta Chamber of Commerce, and we are so excited to have you all here for our women's panel on empowerment. But first, I'd like to recognize our sponsors for this series, our Power Lunch series. Our presenting series sponsor is SRP Federal Credit Union. Our signature series sponsors are Augusta University and Savannah River Nuclear Solutions. Our supporting series sponsors are MAU, SME CPAs, Savannah River Remediation, The Star, and University Healthcare System. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Now, before we get started, how many believe that empowering women is essential to building stronger and more sustainable communities? Yes. All right. So today's title, Empowerment, Becoming a Woman of Influence, 3 key words. Empowerment, influence, women. So what is empowerment? Does anybody really know what empowerment is? Well, an article in the Journal of Extension defines empowerment as a multidimensional social process that helps people gain control over their own lives. It's a process that fosters power in people for use in their own lives, their communities, and in their society by acting on issues they define as important. Digest that. Okay? Take that easy. So, influence. The dictionary definition of influence is the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something, the ability to cause a change in thought or action. So digest that. So we've got the empowerment, we've got the influence, now we have the women. Okay? So today we have a strong panel of women who will share information about their career, leadership, and influence. And we hope today you leave with a better understanding of how you are empowered, or can be, and how to use your power for influence. We ready? All right. We're going to start out asking our panel a couple of questions, or one question, before I actually introduce them with their bio. And that question is, what was your dream job as a kid and why? And I'm going to start with Ms. Carpenter.
Well, my dream job was to be a school teacher. And I see one of our former teachers at North Augusta Elementary back here. But I had a couple of teachers that were very inspirational to my life. My first grade teacher, Miss Christine Weeks, and my third grade teacher at North Augusta Elementary was Miss Scruggs. And Miss Weeks, I was a crybaby in school. And I remember the children who come to me today crying. I said, would you believe Miss Pat did the same thing? But these 2 teachers took me in, and I would go home every day, and I hate to say this, up till I was in middle school and maybe even 9th grader, play school. I had a class every day in front of me that was not there. And I had my signed papers on my desk. We lived in an old house in downtown North Augusta that had the wallpaper was my chalkboard. And I would talk to these children and teach them, even though they wasn't there, all day long. So, and I think God prepared me as a 6-year-old. Some of you know me, some of you don't. My life involves around children, everything I do in my life.
All right. Pat Carpenter. We're going to see how these relate to who they are now. Pat Carpenter has lived in North Augusta her entire life. She attended Augusta Technical College and is currently the parent coordinator for North Augusta Elementary. She has also been a coach for 34 years with North Augusta Parks and Recreation, coaching basketball, baseball, volleyball, cheerleading, soccer, and softball. Ms. Carpenter coaches the T-Rex in baseball and basketball, as well as the Miracle League. She is also a member of North Augusta City Council, where she has served for 23 years. She is married to Kenneth Carpenter and has 2 children, Fran Gay, Frank Carpenter, and 4 grandchildren, Ella, Luke, Will, and Hayden. See the connection? Dr. Christine Crawford. What was your dream job as a kid and why?
So probably until I was about 9, my dream job was actually being a lawyer. And then for some reason, because I have horrible handwriting and don't like to write, period, probably decided that that was not a great idea. And then wanted to become an OBGYN. So was a candy striper, volunteered when I was in college, and the prenatal unit and the neonatal unit, care unit. And at some point in college, watching OBGYNs is what I thought was my dream job. I realized it really wasn't. Well done.
So, Dr. Christine Ruth Crawford is a native of Aiken, South Carolina. In her role as an owner, operator, and director of operations of 7 McDonald's restaurants in the central Savannah River area, she supervises over 300 employees. She has received several awards from the McDonald's community, including the Regional Spirit Award for Leadership. Dr. Crawford graduated magna cum laude from Spelman College in 1994 and received her doctorate in epidemiology from Harvard University in 2000. After serving on the faculty of Morehouse College, Dr. Crawford became an Epidemic Intelligence Service Officer at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. She received several awards, including a National Center for Infectious Disease honor and a September 11 Emergency Response Appreciation from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Dr. Crawford joined the family business in 2003 and became a McDonald's franchisee in 2005. She planned several next-generation workshops for both the Women Operators Network and the National Black McDonald's Operators Association. She has served on several McDonald's National Operators leadership teams, including the Future Task Force and Food Experience. Dr. Crawford served as the president of the Augusta Cooperative of McDonald's Owner-Operators for 4 years. She served as a speaker for several national and local youth groups, including the National Black NBA Association Leaders of Tomorrow. And she currently serves on the Planning and Development Committee of the Georgia Region's Health System and the Board of Directors of the South Carolina Chamber of Commerce. Dr. Crawford was a former member of the Richmond County Board of Health and Salvation Army of Augusta Advisory Board. She's a graduate of Leadership Augusta and Leadership Georgia, currently resides in North Augusta, and is a Liberty Fellow. Dr. Janet Jordan.
Well, you graduated magna cum laude. I graduated, thank you, Laude. Okay, let's see what you can do with this. Honest to goodness, what I wanted to do when I grew up was be an opera singer. Actually, a diva. And why would you not want to do that? They get to wear great costumes, everybody applauds them, they get heaps of flowers after every performance, and they get to wear wigs. Why would you not want to be an opera diva?
Okay. Dr. Sandra Jordan. This isn't on her bio, but she is the first female chancellor of USCA. As the 4th Chancellor of the University of South Carolina, Aiken, Dr. Sandra J. Jordan is the Chief Executive Officer and Principal Spokesperson of the university. Over the past 30 years, Dr. Jordan has served in a number of leadership positions at universities, including Department Chair, Dean, Vice Provost, and Provost before becoming Chancellor. Dr. Jordan received her doctorate and Master of Arts degrees from the University of Georgia. Dr. Jordan attended the Management Development Program at Harvard University's Institute for Higher Education, the 21st Century Leadership Institute sponsored by ALIA and AASCU, and was a summer fellow at Vanderbilt University's Institute for Higher Education Management. An active member of the community, Dr. Jordan serves on numerous local, state, and national boards, and is active in developing future higher education leaders by mentoring cabinet-level professionals through the American Academic Leadership Institute in Washington, D.C. Dr. Jordan and her husband, Michael, reside in Aiken. They have one son, Matthew, who is a doctoral candidate at Georgia Tech. Dr. Jordan.
So you got part of that. You got the diva part.
Okay.
Right? You didn't make the opera part.
I
but
did not.
she's definitely a
I can't
diva.
sing.
So I guess from an early age, my interests were always in the sciences, chemistry, biology, math, anything to do with that. But I wanted to marry those things with helping people. So I, from a very early age, wanted to be a physician and kind of a GP kind of doctor, because I thought there was diversity in that and could help a lot of people with a lot of different problems. And then I continued to want to do that into my college years, and I got to the point where I was kind of self-funding my education, so I was working and going to school, and I just couldn't fathom another 8 or 10 years of college. So I kind of switched gears right at the end of my bachelor's degree and just decided to go out and get a job and make some money with the thought that maybe I'd go back to medical school later. Of course, as things turn out, life goes on, and I never went back and pursued that dream. But with today's, all the requirements with the medical profession today, I'm kind of glad I didn't become a physician.
But you have your doctorate.
Okay, so Carol Johnson is the first female president and CEO of Savannah River Nuclear Solutions. She is responsible to the Department of Energy for the safe, effective, and efficient management and operations of the Savannah River site. Her responsibilities include providing vision, leadership, mission growth, technological advancement, a performance-based culture of safety, security, and operational excellence at the site. Carol Johnson has more than 30 years of leadership experience in the operation of high-hazard nuclear facilities, environmental management, decommissioning, and infrastructure at several DOE locations. Mrs. Johnson serves on the board of directors for the Aiken-Edgefield-Saluda Economic Development Partnership, the Child Advocacy Center, Aiken, the South Carolina Alliance, and the Original Six Foundation. She is the chair of the Aiken Together Capital Campaign. Ms. Carol Johnson. So we're going to go through a few more questions. At any time, if you have a question, just pop your hand up. It's okay to jump in there. Don't want you to forget your question, so just let me know if you have a question. But I'm going to start this next one with Ms. Christine. What woman inspires you and why?
So that's fairly easy. So I work with my mother. So my mother has been a McDonald's franchisee for about 30 years now. So we are a second-generation woman-owned business. And so so she clearly inspires me. But there are lots of women, almost too many to name. So my grandmother, Ruth Crawford, all of the women who are at the table that work with me every day.
That's perfect. I'm the same way. I can't name just one woman. I find that I'm inspired by women who work for me, women who are colleagues. Some of the women sitting right here on this panel group have inspired me. If you're looking for famous names and sort of role models that are out there for women, I would say I had the opportunity to meet and have some time with Benazir Bhutto. And as you may or may not know, Benazir Bhutto was the first woman elected into a Muslim country. And unfortunately, she was assassinated in 2007, but I had a chance to spend a good bit of time with her in 2006. And she was incredibly inspiring, especially the work she was doing to advance women in some very difficult cultures that weren't supporting women and the poor. She was trying to change the way that nation addressed the poor. I've also been inspired by women who've broken boundaries. Oprah Winfrey is a great example of that. You know, she broke through some stereotypes and some boundaries. I think that's inspiring. Women who've really made it in a man's world, people like Helena Rubinstein, who, the makeup magnet, you know, but who was never expected to be successful in a business field, and yet was incredibly successful. And just grace under pressure, someone like Audrey Hepburn, you know, who had enormous issues in her life, both physical problems. She survived the occupation in the Netherlands, very tough childhood, a lot of even hunger, you know, as a young child, and yet you would never know that to hear an interview of her, and she was inspirational to me because of her public work when she took over UNICEF.
Well, when I read the question, I tried to think of famous, you know, people that maybe you all could relate to, and I have to say I have a hard time with that, because for somebody to inspire me, I have to know them. And I have to know, you know, their values, their character, you know, their qualities. And so I couldn't really come up with famous, you know, people. There are some that I would say I admire, but I don't really know them. So I tend to get my inspiration from people around me. And I'm particularly inspired, you know, we're in the nuclear industry, and it is a male-dominated industry, always has been, still is today. I think we're making progress there, but it's a very, very challenging environment. And so for me, I'm most inspired by women who are successful in our industry and can raise a family. You know, who have children, who can balance, or at least attempt to balance, the work life and the home life, and raise children and work the kind of hours that we do. I've got a table of ladies here, most of whom are successful, well, they all have successful careers, and most of them have children, and I draw from that, and I think, gosh, my job is easy compared to their jobs when they have to work all day and go home at night and tend to all of the things that come with raising a family.
Well, I'd like to say my mother, and her name was Mary Frances Cooper. My mother was a lady who stood in the corner. No one ever noticed her. And she was a lady who gave to her family continuously. I grew up with an alcoholic father. My brother married. We were one of the first racial couples in North Augusta back in the 1970s when the racial riots were at its highest in the country. And also, my mother had breast cancer. She kept 30 to 40 children a day in her home by herself, other than me and my two brothers helping her, and you can imagine that kind of help. But my mother always gave to other people. And like I said, no matter what come in life, y'all go, I'll stay keep the children. And she always, like I said, stood in the background. But when she died, there were no clubs to put in there where she belonged. But she was a woman who loved her Lord, and she taught her 3 children to love the Lord and put people first in their life. Thank you.
What has been your biggest career challenge? How did you overcome it? Or did you overcome it?
I overcome it every day. You know, there are no shortage of challenges in the workplace. Every one of you know that. And so there are any number I could select. But I would say that for me, and I think this is true for many women because we're relationship driven, and I think that's one of our strengths, actually. Who wants to work for someone who doesn't care about the relationships in their lives, you know, but it's getting over criticism. You know, criticism it's gotten worse, I think. I think it's become a little more mean-spirited. It's also everywhere. You can't escape it. It used to be face-to-face. Now it's on the email, it's in the blogs, and it's on the, you know, you name it, it's there. You know, and I have a process for making decisions, and it's a consultative process, and it's a process where I actually go through and think in terms of what the problem is and how I think we should address it. And I'm a researcher by training, so I go out and gather facts and information, and then I bring that to bear in my decision making. And so when I get criticized over something where I've had time to use my process, I can take it a little better, because chances are I've put in the time and effort and consulted to the level where I feel very, very comfortable with the decision. But you can't always make decisions like that. Sometimes you're making decisions quickly. Lots of times you have inadequate amounts of information. And in those cases, or you don't even have time to consult much, in those cases I feel very vulnerable when I'm criticized. It really kind of cuts to the core, and you feel you start second guessing not only your decision, but your ability to make a good decision. And so you have to wrestle with that and find a way to come to terms with it and still remain focused on people and open to suggestions, criticism, and opportunities that brings to improve.
Dr. Carter?
I think mine is one that has happened recently as I've assumed more leadership positions, and that's trying to balance listening with being comfortable in my position and my role. So a lot of times as women, men will tell you what you need to do, and they would never ever say that to a man that they work with. Never. They would not talk to them as if they need to do anything. They would not tell them what they need to do, but they will with you. And so learning how to handle that in an effective way where we both still feel good about the interaction, and then yet I still remain open to listen and receiving and learning from them is something that I'm probably struggling with at this point in time.
Ms. Carpenter?
Well, I hate to say, but I have never had any challenges. Every job I've had has been absolutely wonderful. I worked for the physicians by University Hospital for 35 years, and I see God prepared me for North Augusta Elementary, because the way my jobs are, when you young ladies have your children at that school, I want you to enjoy your day, because you know we're taking care of them, and we're going to treat them like our children. And the same way in the medical field, when a patient calls, you treat them as if that's your mother or your husband or children calling you. So, like I said, I will say I've worked 49 years, and my life has been absolutely wonderful in my work career.
So I think my biggest career challenge has been me. It has taken me a long time to gain the self-confidence necessary for me to do what I do today, and it's been a journey. You know, it was. I'm not a perfectionist, but I really like to do things well, and I think when you're that kind of personality, you worry about what other people think. You worry if you're doing enough, working hard enough, doing enough. And so it's that insecurity that comes with that worrying about your performance. And so I'm still not over that yet, but I'm far better than I was, 20, 25 years ago. And so, how did I overcome it? Well, I think for me, I just kept working at it. I was kind of self-aware that I had this issue. And there was a turning point. I don't really have time to tell the story, but there was a turning point where I sort of came to realize that I am who I am, and it doesn't really matter so much what other people think. If I think I'm doing the right things and working hard enough, that good things will happen. And so the insecurity that I have, why am I really having it? And so like I said, it just got better, but it's maybe some of you in here have experienced that and know what I'm talking about. It's sort of hard to describe, but I just would tell all of you, you have your own gifts and talents and abilities, and put those to good use, and good things will happen, and it doesn't really matter what other people think.
Okay, thank you. If you'll hold on to that. Ms. Johnson, I'll let you lead with the next question. How have you used your leadership abilities to influence others, male or female?
I think, where I am now, I take it as my obligation, really, to help others. And we do that, at SRNS, we do that in a variety of ways. We have some formal means of mentoring others, mentoring circles. We have early career organizations that I'm a part of and my leadership team is a part of, to really reach out and touch people on a more personal level and coach and mentor them. I find that people really need the individual attention, and it takes a lot of time to do that, but if you're a leader, that has to be a very important part of your job, and you have to put it on the priority list. It has to be pretty high up there. So I just remind myself often of my responsibilities to help people coming along, both men and women, and help them in their personal challenges and in their career development.
Make your computer easier to use. Cancel.
Well done.
Was that a message? What was that?
I touched something, I was enjoying the mouse here, so I'm sorry.
And I just say one other thing. I think as leaders, we have to remember that we're always being watched by others. So our behavior, the way we communicate with one another, the tone by which we speak, the listening skills that we put to use, all those things really matter to other people. And so that, we're really developing others through our own actions and behaviors.
Well, when you talk about your leadership skills to influence others, that can be taken more than one way. I work in higher ed, so we're in what's called a shared governance environment. In other words, a lot of people have input on every decision that's made, and that would mean students have an input on important decisions for the campus, faculty, staff, sometimes alumni, sometimes members of the community. And so you have to, as a leader, if you want to be effective, you have to think about how you influence others, and hopefully for the good and for the benefit of the institution. It goes back to something you said. It means that you have the capacity to listen, and listen very closely to what you're being told. People don't always tell you what they really are meaning to say. They'll say something, but you have to kind of think way down into and listen way down close into what they're saying, so that you can glean those elements of truth from it that you can use to help you make better decisions. Am I using my position to influence them? Well, I'm hoping I'm using my leadership to do a better job. You have to know what you're talking about. Carol mentioned that a moment ago, and I think it's true for everybody sitting here. You have to know your area, your field, your strengths, your weaknesses. You have to be reflective and thoughtful. And when you know all of that and you are thinking about what others need, then I think it makes a team work much better. I have to have little sayings in my head, because when things get tough, I have to chant them like my mantra to myself. And there's one that I adopted about 8 years ago, and I honest to goodness, I'm not kidding you, I have it taped to my computer so that when I answer an email, I have it in mind, and I have it there in front of me in my head all the time. And I stole it, of course, like most good things. We liberate those ideas from others, and this came from the Armored Tank Division. But it goes like this: mission first, people always. Now, I'm human, and sometimes I get impatient and I get aggravated, and I don't put people first, but I try to live by that, and that itself makes you an influential leader.
So I think aspirationally, I would like for everyone that I've worked with, or those I interact with, to see something bigger than they ever thought they would see for themselves. Because my life has already had so many twists and turns, and I think because in a large measure to my family and how there was never the idea of anything that I couldn't do, I think that everybody should have that gift. And so I hope that's what people see and get. And then I think functionally, it doesn't do anyone any service if I do all of these committees and I serve in these positions, and then when I'm gone, I haven't helped someone else enter that room or help someone else get ready for that same position. So I think the thing that I hope to do is to serve for a little while and then make sure that a couple more people who maybe would not have had that opportunity then have that same capacity to serve.
Well, I guess we all would like to leave this earth knowing we've influenced someone, which we don't know a lot of times. But I think one of the big things we need to do as people is to bring the best out of them. As I'm coaching, the child might not be the best athlete, but there's something very special about that young person. And if you can bring that out in them, let them build that confidence in themselves, then they're going to be a better person. I think about the story, the man running down the beach, throwing every starfish he could catch back in the water. And someone said, "Bud, you'll never save all those fish." He said, "Yeah, but the one life I touch and save matters." And so, like I said, try to be a person who not only talks the talk, walk the walk, but talk the talk. And I tell young people all the time, every day of my life, you know, if you're going to be in leadership, you got to walk that line. And now you're going to fall, but it's just like riding your bicycle. You fall off it. What do? You get right back up and ride it again and start back over. But like I said, I just think, and most of these have said, bringing out the very best in people and showing people you love them is going to influence their life down the road.
Now, I have one more question, but before we get to that one more question, does anyone else have any questions? No one? You're getting all your fill right now. Go
I'm
ahead.
always interested in books as an English major. So have there been any books in your life that have been particularly inspiring?
Moby Dick. No. Great book.
For me, there's a book called Anonymous by a Christian author named Alicia Cholet, and it's about Jesus's hidden years. So it's about the years that you don't see Jesus being active in the Bible. And so what was that period for, and what was that preparation for? And so a lot of times in our life, when we think we are being hidden or it's winter, that's actually the season that's preparing you. And so that's a great book for me to go back to when I'm in the midst of seasons where I feel like I'm being looked at, because I remember that I was being prepared earlier. And then in the seasons where it feels like, okay, why is this not happening, that those are seasons of preparation as well.
Would you repeat the book and the author again, please?
So it's Anonymous, Jesus' Hidden Years by Alicia, Alicia, Cholet, Chole.
Go ahead.
Well, sitting right here, I can't think of a particular leadership book or something. Typically, when I read leadership books, I'm arguing with them in my head. But you learn something from each of them, and you also learn stuff. It helps you refine what you're thinking about your experience as a leader. I will say all great pieces of literature inform you and shape who you are, whether it's reflecting on religious or social issues or not, you know, and I think they all become a piece of who you are.
So one that I like is a fairly recent publication by Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, and her book is called Lean In.
Yeah.
And it spoke to me, I guess, kind of going back to what I said about insecurities. And, you know, her message is lean in, step up to the table, have your voice be heard, don't be afraid of that. And if you're not given the offer to lean in, do it anyway, you know. And so I think it's a good book not only for women, but also for men who have daughters, and they need to help their daughters with self-confidence, because I think it kind of applies not only in work life, but just in raising your children. So that's one I would recommend.
It's a good one.
And of course, the greatest book I have is the Bible. I get up every morning and read my scripture, and I go to work and I have to laugh at God. Not laughing at him, forgive me. But he always,
away.
that scripture fits what's happening in my life that day. It never, and I tell young people, I teach Sunday school, that there's great love stories, there's great things that you don't believe in the Bible that, can get you rolling. But like I said, that's my greatest book, and I want to give God peace every morning.
Anyone else? No? Well, Ms. Pat, we'll have you start our final question. What advice would you give the audience on how to prepare to take on a leadership role?
I think you should use every moment of your life. I look at my life from the time I was a child to I'm 66 years old now, that something has inspired me to move forward in my life. And like I said, no matter what we do, I coach special needs children now in my life. And years ago, when I worked on a neurology floor, I couldn't look at these children. I cried. And I said, no, God, no. I come to North Augusta Elementary, and there's a little 6-year-old. They said, Pat, you've got to see her. I said, no, I can't go in that room. And I kept backing off. Finally, they pushed me in the room, and I met Faith McCall. She's now 32. And she changed my life. I said, God prepared me through a 6-year-old to do what I'm doing today, coaching special needs children. So I feel like, young ladies and everybody, that you look at your life, you think, oh, that's a coincidence. No, it's not odd, but it's God working in your life and preparing you. And that's one of the things I like to tell young people today. Don't think you're a 7th grader and he's not doing something for you. What you're doing now, he's preparing you for then. And I'm going to leave on this Bible verse. It said, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. Does that mean I'm going to win every ball game at Riverview Park? No. But it means God's going to be right there with me, getting me through and leading me to wherever he has me to go.
I think the first thing I would recommend is that everyone be a continuous lifelong learner and student. And so it is a student, not just in the traditional sense, so not just books and articles, but learning and watching those around you. So a lot of times people think a mentor has to be something that's worked out on paper, or that the person knows that you're a mentor, or that they're your mentor. And a lot of times it's really, if you watch them in meetings, what things do they do really well? What could I learn from that person? When I watch them interact in a reception, are there things that I could pick up from them? So I think watching people and learning, not just through books, but seeing life as an opportunity to learn and be better is the first thing. And then the second thing would be simply to lead. Right? A lot of times we don't want to, or we think we'd rather do something else, or we're more comfortable doing some of the smaller things. And so the biggest thing would be to step up and lead and be comfortable knowing that you're going to mess up, but then you'll learn and be better, and you'll be able to lead at a different level and in a different way the next time.
Well, ditto, you know. Well done. I have to agree that those were some very excellent points. I think you have to study leadership, and I don't mean in a formal way. You don't have to take a class, but you have to read, think about, watch others in leadership roles. They will be, that you will learn things you want to do as a leader and things you don't want to do. I think I've learned as much as I have watching people I admire, watching folks I thought weren't very gifted leaders, and trying not to mimic them. I think reflecting on your own leadership is important. Asking the question, was I effective just then when I was speaking about this topic to my cabinet or whatever? Or could I have done a better job of being in tune with what that person needed when I was trying to help guide them? You know, just be reflective on what you're doing, because by being reflective, it's like practicing any sport or anything else. You get better at it, and it becomes more second nature to you. I would add that you need to nurture your emotional intelligence and your creativity. Find ways to challenge both of those and to grow in both of those areas. You know what I mean by emotional intelligence, your ability to connect with others. I find that is probably one of the most important traits I see in leaders across the board. And then creativity, listen, the kinds of issues we are facing, they will need creative solutions in order to really move forward. And so nurturing, don't discount your creativity, nurture it if you possibly can. I'd also say that a mentor is a really great idea. And it can be a formal or an informal mentor, or just a friend you trust who you can say, this is what I thought I was doing. Was I doing that well, or did you think I was effective? It just helps to have another set of eyes and people who can steer you back on course or correct your course or make a suggestion as someone you really and really feel can be honest with you. And then I want to say this. I think this is really important. Forgive yourself. You know, there's the leader I want to be, and then there's Sandra Jordan, you know, and the two are not brought together yet. You know, I've been in leadership roles for 30 years. I'm still practicing. I'm still trying to bring the leader that I want to be together with the person that I am. And I think that you have to periodically say, okay, I didn't do that as well as I like, or that made me a little uptight or angry or something, and I should have been a lot more generous. I should have been like Carol, you know, or whatever. But I think you have to forgive yourself that and learn from it and move on.
Well, I think if you have the responsibilities of leading and managing people, you know, that's a very important responsibility. And we tend to get caught up in the task we have to get done or the mission we have to get done. I will tell you the most important piece of advice I can give you is you are managing people. People are the most important thing you have to deal with. And at the heart of that is they have to trust you. And so that, to me, that's the foundation of effective leadership is trust. And you don't automatically step into a job and people trust you. You know, they don't. And so you have to work hard at that, and you have to build credibility and all the things we've talked about with listening and communication. But it really, you have to carve out the time. If you are a new leader, carve out the time to learn your people. Know them. Know their strengths, weaknesses, what they care about, what they don't care about. Just know something about their lives. And so that to me, the world revolves with people, and in a leadership role, that is, you know, that's what it's all about, and that's you're carrying that responsibility. And I agree with the comments about learning. I had that point written down as well. Continuous learning.
Very important.
And you know, we're busy, and again, it's another thing that takes time. But just always have that as a backdrop of continuous learning, and learning on the job and learning elsewhere. Just take every opportunity to meet new people, observe the way they behave, the way they do things, and just make that part of who you are.
Questions? Going once, going twice. So let's give our panel a round of applause. Now we do have a few parting gifts for you.
No, we like gifts.
Compliments of the Chamber and Wine World.
You don't want to
You know I
They're even great.
Yeah, the bags are fabulous.
Thank you, Tara.
Nice change bags. And do you all have any parting words? Anything else that you'd like to say, share?
Could I
Go ahead.
think that the fact that you're here speaks volumes about your interest in being effective. And I think the more conversation you can engage in, the more activities like this you can be part of, the more refined. I mean, just sitting here, I learned something from all the people on this panel, except for me. And that is just such a healthy thing to do as you advance in your career and your thinking.
Well, thanks once again, ladies, and thank you to our sponsors, and thank you, Jessica, for putting on a great women's panel. It's been wonderful, but before I let you all leave, I have one last thing I'd like to share. This is the last month that we will be able to share with Ms. Carol Johnson. She is retiring for the second time. And we have appreciated you being a part of our North Augusta family, our North Augusta Chamber family. You have been great to us and the community. We thank you. We wish you well in your retirement, and we'll look for your parking lights. And,